Well, a stage moved, a considerable stage move required before we welcome tonight's much anticipated soloist. For one thing, we need another piano. Well, happily, there are a fair few pianos to be found around here, but none quite like the one that appeared on the steps of the Royal Albert Hall this afternoon. It was a surprisingly floral number, grand piano completely covered in red and blue flowers, and beside it a sign reading, "Play Me." Well, students, children, Proms, even pianist Yunchan himself have been doing exactly that this afternoon. At one point there was a sea of cameras and some shrieks from passers-by as they realised exactly who was tinkling the ivories. Well, we caught up with a couple of them. First, florist herself. Hi, Natasha. This must be quite an unusual commission for you.
An amazing commission, a piano in flowers, for Yunchan Lim. We created the blue and the red just so that it was synchronizing and harmonizing of the colors between the Decca label. And he's also South Korean, tying in the red and the blue.
And tell us what exactly are the flowers. So the top of the piano entirely blue, bottom entirely red. What are they?
So we created the piano using blue carnations and red carnations.
They're beautifully uniform as well. This must have taken... How long did it take you?
Well, it took us approximately, if I bring in the prep work, I would say a day. The reason being is we did one by one each flower just to ensure the shape of the piano. We didn't want to lose the shape of it.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Emily, thank you for playing for us.
Thank you.
And tell me, is this the first time you've played at the Royal Albert Hall?
Yeah.
Can you believe it? And on a piano that looked like that?
Yeah. You can feel the cool breeze of air while playing your piece.
And who is your favourite composer?
I like to play Johann Pachelbel, which is one of the creators for Canon in D. And I really like the song because it's like so nice, so charming, and so peaceful. It just makes my heart very happy to hear the song, where usually when I play, I feel very enjoyable.
Well, it makes us very happy to hear you play today. Now, have you been to the Royal Albert Hall before at all?
No, I've never went to London before. This is my very first time going to Europe in London.
Well, it must be pretty inspiring to hear all these other people play. Yunchan Lim was playing earlier today. He's going to be the soloist tonight. But so many people playing.
Yeah, that's so nice.
And Emily, well, you've already played at the Royal Albert Hall, but when you're older, do you want to be a pianist?
Yes, I want to own a piano company where I can teach little kids. I will encourage everybody to play piano because it will make you very happy if you can play the piece that you really like.
Brilliant. Emily, it's been fantastic to meet you. Have a safe journey home, but enjoy being here in London.
It's so amazing. I would love to come here again, and thank you so much.
Word on the streets from the piano on the street, mostly from young Emily outside the Royal Albert Hall. After Yunchan played, children, students queued up to take their turn. Some of them had just toured the Royal College of Music next door. He's certainly inspiring the next generation. Heave-ho, that age-old tradition. Going back to the Henry Wood days of the Proms, from the Proms themselves, that is as the technicians raise the piano lid. They've just about got it in place. Earlier I asked tonight's conductor, Kazuki Yamada, what it's like working with Yunchan Lim.
Yunchan is really superstar. Together, we just did a Japan tour together with Yunchan. And in Japan also, of course, but even in Japan, many great fans, the Korean fan came to Japan. And kind of before the performance, already somehow very super high tension it was. Of course, he has great technique, but of course not only the technique. He has a special emotion, and his human being is very special, I think so, because he has already such a deep music. Fantastic. They're not only the outside. Yes, there are many great pianists can do, it's okay like that, but outside looks good, but not like that. He is really artist.
tonight's conductor, Kazuki Yamada. Well, we come now to Rachmaninoff and his fourth piano concerto. You could see it as a bridge between the Russian Rachmaninoff and Rachmaninoff in exile. Some of the sketches for it date back to the pre-revolutionary years, but he melds it with the hustle and bustle of life in New York, a long way from the peaceful Russian summers on his family estate. The story of it really begins in the 1920s, Rachmaninoff enjoying success as a virtuoso pianist, which freed him up financially to compose again. But by the time he wrote the fourth piano concerto, 1927, he was surrounded by young modernists whose tastes had accelerated far faster than his own, and at the premiere they mocked his late romantic style. Well, before it was published, Rachmaninoff made cuts and he revised it substantially in 1941, and that's the version that we're about to hear tonight. The critics said it was neither so expressive nor as effective as its famous companion in C minor, but we're meeting a different side to Rachmaninoff, and from a pianist's perspective, it makes even more demands on interaction with the orchestra. Well, energy and power are the watchwords here, and 21-year-old South Korean pianist Yunchan Lim has both in abundance. He makes his way through the orchestra to the front of the stage to this warm, warm welcome. And here to play Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 4. listening to BBC Radio 3. You join us in the middle of Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 4 in G minor with Yunchan Lim. We're just pausing for a slight moment, just a little disturbance in the hall. You may have heard that siren, and we'll come to you as soon as we know more. Just a reminder that this year you can listen to highlights from across the season on BBC Sounds with our Proms Unmissable Moments playlist. Just say to your smart speaker, ask BBC Sounds to play the Proms. And I don't envy whoever's putting that playlist together. Every night there seem to be more things to add to it. Perhaps not this very moment right now, but you never do know. Well, it is a piano concerto that had many, many revisions over the years. Before the publication, 1927, and then again in 1941. But for all the misgivings that pianists and audiences may have had about it in the intervening time, and for all the revisions, those revisions that Rachmaninoff made, he clearly cared deeply about it. He was engaged in writing a 2-piano reduction of the final version, this 1941 version when he died, and his widow asked Robert Russell Bennett to complete it. Be a fun thing to hear, wouldn't it? Probably not now, not when we've got the City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra sitting in front of us. The alarm has stopped, it has to be said. So we may be nearly ready to carry on. It was a pupil of Rimsky-Korsakov, Lev Puishnov, who gave the first Proms performance of this concerto, with Henry Wood conducting on the 27th of September in 1930. But then it remained completely absent from the series until September 1958, when the American pianist Lamar Crowson was the soloist. Well, all is well. Any crisis completely averted. Kazuki Yamada returns to the stage at the Royal Albert Hall. Yunchan Lim takes another bow, and I do believe we're ready to carry on with the second movement. The Royal Albert Hall in raptures for Yunchan Lim's performance of Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 4. He immediately jumps up from the stool to embrace Kazuki Yamada and tonight's leader, Yunchan Tikandalian, as Kazuki brings the whole of the City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra to their feet. The unflappable winner of the prestigious Van Cliburn International Piano Competition in 2022. On that occasion with Rachmaninoff's third piano concerto, the live stream of which went viral. More than 17 million people have now watched it. Needless to say, Yunchan's career has skyrocketed. He's been dubbed classical music's answer to K-pop by the New York Times, and he lives up to all the accolades. Fearsome technique is a given with that bell-like quality to his touch. It's in the way he exudes charisma as well, his movement at the piano, but also vulnerability in the tender corners of this concerto. He's back on stage now, working his way through the orchestra to take another bow. I'd like to think it was the spirit of Rachmaninoff creating that pause back there to make us really savour this last piano concerto. Now, a little bird told me that there may be an encore on the cards. It's edging towards that seat. And this May, Decca Classics released Lim's live performance of Rach 3 from the Van Cliburn competition. They're going to need to add his interpretation of No. 4 to the catalogue, because I think we just heard a new champion of it. Well, he's gone off stage, but as you can hear, these Proms, they want him back. Has been quite a week for Rachmaninoff. Any performances you've missed, you can catch on BBC Sounds. But he is back, and he looks like he's making a beeline for that piano. Yes. Schönste Nacht, most beautiful nights from Erich Korngold's 1920s inspired operetta, The Silent Serenade. Beautiful choice for Yunchan Lim's encore, taking us further into the sounds of Rachmaninoff's exile in the salons of New York. As I was saying, Rachmaninoff, a major feature of the Proms this week, from Wednesday's Piano Concerto No. 2 with Vadim Kholidenko, BBC National Orchestra of Wales, the Symphonic Dances with the BBC Philharmonic yesterday, or the Estonian Philharmonic's Chamber Choir singing the Gloria and Hail Mary from the all-night vigil. And last night's remarkable late-night prom. They're all waiting for you on BBC Sounds, but tonight the applause is all for this pianist, Yunchan Lim. A generous performer, bowing to all directions in the Royal Albert Hall, in front, behind, and especially to the orchestra. You're listening to BBC Radio 3, the home of the Proms all summer long. It is great to have your company this evening. Hannah French with you tonight, and as we look forward to Berrios' Sinfonia in the second half of tonight's concert, writer, broadcaster and co-presenter of Radio 3 series 20th Century Radicals, Gillian Moore, has just arrived, just in time to see Yunchan Lim come back on stage for another very well-earned bow this evening. He's won the hearts of everyone in the hall tonight. What a sensation. Well, yes, Gillian Moore has just arrived. She's going to set up our hearts and minds for Berrios' Sinfonia after this.
Hello, it's Tom Service, here to tell you about what you can expect from Saturday mornings on BBC Radio 3. I'll be playing some familiar favourites, as well as music we all need to know better. And we'll meet some of the biggest and brightest names in classical music.
Hi, hello.
Thank you so much for having me, Tom.
Join me, Tom Service, Saturday mornings from 9. To listen, just ask your smart speaker to play BBC Radio 3.
Well, here you are on BBC Radio 3 in the interval of tonight's prom. Gillian Moore, welcome.
It's lovely to be here, Hannah.
Great to have you back with us. What a first half.
Yeah, it was great. It was, those two artists, Kazuki, Yamada and Yunchan Lim, they're just such communicative and fluent musicians, aren't they? I mean, they're magical to watch and
really synchronized.
Yeah, exactly.
Between the two of them, even though they're not eyeballing each other, you can tell they've got that direct line.
And the thing I loved about Yunchan Lim's playing, particularly in the Rachmaninoff, was the fact, especially in the first movement, the way he plays chamber music with individual musicians in the orchestra. So he's accompanying those wind solos, and it's just so intimate. Obviously, you get the big guns at later moments, but there's such a sort of variety of scale and sound, and his quiet playing is really special.
It's exquisite. Now, Berrios' Sinfonia lies ahead of us this evening, so I think to begin with, we need to be clear about one very key thing. Who exactly was Luciano Berio?
Well, Luciano Berio, Italian composer. It's 100 years this year since he was born in Onelia in northern Italy, which is a town famous for olive oil and pasta. He was part of that post-war avant-garde generation. People like Boulez, also 100 this year, Stockhausen and Xenakis, and they'd lived through the trauma of the Second World War. And what's said about them, and it's true, is that they wanted to wipe the slate clean after the trauma of war, to get rid of music of the past and really make music for a brave new world. But I guess the interesting thing for me about Luciano Berio is that was not an option for him. He came from a long line of musicians and he grew up with the sounds of opera and chamber music in his ears at home when his father was teaching. He loved the music of the past. There's a great story he tells about hearing La Bohème for the first time on the radio when he was 13 years old, and to his mortification he was unable to control his tears at the dinner table. So that's the relationship he had with music of the past.
Yeah, really visceral thing, and not easily forgotten. You can't move on from that in a way. It's in there, it's in your blood.
Yeah, but I mean, he was a modernist, an experimentalist, and a pioneer, including writing lots of electronic music. But the thing that I wanted to focus on in our little chat tonight is the fact that he was kind of the king of recomposition, of rethinking old music from Schubert to Boccherini to Monteverdi to Kurt Weill. And he also remixed music of his own era. So
right,
for
so
example,
folk music.
Yeah, well, the Beatles actually. Beatles songs. Yeah. He made fantastic arrangements of Beatles songs. In fact, he was so cool. He knew the Beatles, and they really respected his music. But folk music is you're right, is a really important element. And one of his most famous pieces is actually called Folk Songs, and it's from 1964, and it was written for Kathy Berberian, this great creative collaborator he had. She was a composer. She was a phenomenal singer. She was married to Berio for about 15 years. And, she came up with lots of the ideas to put into this. She's also, by the way, 100 this year. And, this is a great selection of reworkings of folk songs from all around the world, from America, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Italy, France.
I think we should hear something. What would you like us to hear first?
Well, yeah, what we're going to hear, I mean, it's not actually an original folk tune. The words are from an Appalachian song originally collected by Cecil Sharp and Maud Carpellies. It's got Scottish origins, I was very pleased to find out recently. But there was an early 20th century composer called John Jacob Niles, who was really a folklorist as well. And he set it to a new tune, which has become very famous. Lots of people have covered it, including Nina Simone. But here, Berio does an extraordinary thing. We start with this gorgeous viola solo, just like a folk fiddler gently accompanying an old song.